Well, today we're going to do a prop swap out, and I picked a kind of a rainy day so that there'd be a lot less boat traffic out to do this. But we're going to go from 3-blade props. These have a pitch of 17. They're 14 1/4 props, Yamaha Reliance Series. Of course, they're counter rotating. And then we're going to swap these over with some 4-blade props where the pitch is down by 2, so 15-inch pitch. And the idea is that we're going to swap these out because we want to correct some challenges on this particular behavior of the boat right now. So one of the issues that I've always had on every single boat is that the manufacturer and the dealer, they'll always try to spec propellers that get the boat to the fastest speed at the highest RPM, which the rated RPM that is. But the problem is they always do this test and sizing based on an empty boat. Hardly any fuel in the boat, no gear, no coolers, no ice, no fishing gear, nothing. Hardly anyone on the boat. And so when you go to actually use the boat, now you've got a situation where you're underpropped. And so that's one issue, and I've had this on every single boat. Either I have to go through this whole process, or the previous owner, if it was a used boat, had to go through this process. And the other issue that we have is because this has twins and a trolling motor in the back, we are a little more stern heavy. Now we have extra buoyancy because of the extended offshore hull. That does add buoyancy, but the problem is we still are a little stern heavy. So going to 4-blade prop, that will help raise the stern up a little bit, especially at lower speeds. So we're going to focus it on this particular trip is I'm going to do a dry run, same path, same everything, using the same test parameters. So increment by 500 RPMs, see what our fuel consumption is, our speed, and of course our RPMs, and catalog that as we go all the way to full throttle. And then we'll swap the props out, we'll put our 4-blade props on, and then we'll go through the entire same test parameters and see what the behavior is. We're testing the same day, same path, same direction, everything, so that we're comparing apples to apples. So on this particular boat, this is a Ocean King, a Weldcraft Ocean King 240. It has a registered length a little over 26 feet. Length overall is a little over 27 feet. That's back here to where the engines actually mount. Now, the weight on this, on the scales, with fuel and equipment on here, as it's rigged, I'm at 7,300 pounds. So that's quite a bit of weight. It has a 120-gallon fuel cell that's in this area of the boat here. So there's a lot of weight in this area. So that's part of the reason why we wanted to go with 4-blade props, so we get a little bit more stern lift. So as I record, when we do our actual water test, I'll try to get a view of the horizon so you can see what the attitude of the boat is when we actually do the test of each of the props. All right, let's get started. Here we go. We're on. so we're gonna go ahead and swap this out. So the first thing you need to do is get this cotter key out. So let's go ahead and see if I get this camera positioned here so you can see it. Basically want to flatten this out. Now I have brand new cotter keys. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure you replace these. It's not a good, I mean, guys do all the time, but you're really supposed to replace them. Okay, so pull out this cotter key. And this here is a 27 millimeter nut. It's a King's nut, so it's got these little slots in here so that you can put the cotter key in. Now, I torqued these down earlier to spec, although it's kind of a joke because the torque spec doesn't always land up on the hole, so then you got to back it off anyway. So if it's too tight for you, you can actually use a piece of wood. Use soft wood because you don't want to damage anything. And you can actually use that to kind of hold the prop, one of the blades, in place here so that you get some leverage to take this off. Most of the time, especially if you've been doing maintenance, that shouldn't be the case. See, I was able to spin that baby right off. So you have the King's nut. Pull that off first. That's on these Yamahas. And then there's also a washer. Don't lose them. And this will slide right off. Okay, so there we go. Now on props, if this is something new to you, there's two numbers on the prop. Of course, there's a model number usually stamped on here in the manufacturer. In this case is Yamaha Reliance Series, right? 14 1/4 is the diameter, and then we have 17, which is the pitch. Okay, I'm going to set this guy aside, and then over here I've got my brand new prop. This is a PowerTech prop, and just so you can see here, you can lightly stamped on here, 14 1/4 by 15. Now what you also want to do is on these splines, you should put some grease on here, some marine grease. These splines, although this engine and these props have very little hours on it, only 8 hours, so this grease is not reacted at all, but I'm going to go ahead and throw some on here. Good old 2,4-C. And we want to coat this whole thing. Okay? Guys that don't do this and you go in the salt, it's bad, you know, as R.L. Burnside would say. So you don't want to do that because this will seize and make it very difficult to get the prop off. So let's go ahead and get that on there. This guy will slide right on. Beautiful. We got good clearance, so that's good. Pop this guy on and go do the other prop. See, that feels like it's about right, but that is not going to line up. So now we got to end up cracking it just a little bit. Perfect. I have my brand new cotter key in here. Not anymore. Okay, so drop this in here like so. Most only bend it on the upward side. So let's go over here and we'll do our port engine. We're going to do the same thing. Now, just a few things on this whole thing. You really should work with a prop shop that's reputable, because there's a lot of variables other than just diameter and pitch. There's cupping, there's rake, there's different parameters that a prop shop would know if you're trying to correct specific problems, and they can help you out. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're hitting the right RPMs at a particular pitch and diameter with a 3-blade, you go down 2 inches on your pitch, and that'll still keep you within the same RPM range. So that's really what I'm doing here. My RPMs, as you saw from the test run, I'm between 5,800 and 6,000 RPM, so I'm right in that window. So with the 4-blade, hopefully this will get our stern up, and hopefully we'll get lower speed control and planing, which is what we want for ocean conditions. So we have our 4-blade props. We're going to do the same test. Okay, I'm going to turn around, head upriver. We'll do our same exact test. Get our trim. It's exactly the same. I can't quite get it there, so that's going to be as close as I go. Okay, so let's start off. This is at idle, in gear, at idle speed. Okay. Let's get up to 2500. We're at 3500. 25.7 miles an hour, 2.1 miles per gallon. We lost a little bit. 3,500, 4,000. Okay, so what I want to try is I'm gonna because I know how the other props perform because I've been out on multiple trips. I want to see what I can get this thing to plane at and top speed and everything once I trim everything with these 4-blade props. So we saw that our RPMs were basically a couple hundred RPMs less. Right around that 19-20 mile an hour range, I'm getting good control and bite and consistent speed, so that's good. And my mileage was over 2 miles a gallon, so that's good. That's a vast improvement. Okay, now let's give this a shot. I'll try trimming this out just till we start to either porpoise or we start to get any cavitation. Let's see what we can max the RPMs out with these 4-blade props. Down just a couple notches, help level out the bow. This is a pretty nice ride. Okay, and we are consuming, we got a burn rate of 20 gallons an hour. We start porpoising if I go any higher than that.